Good evening, and we start tonight with events in Austria where 10 people have been killed by a gunman at a school in the city of Graz. The suspect in the shooting, a 21-year-old man who used to attend the school, was found dead at the scene. He used 2 guns in the attack, both of which he owned legally. And as Austria begins 3 days of mourning, questions will be asked about its gun laws, seen as more liberal than many other European countries. Our international affairs editor, Dominic Waghall, reports.
The gunman arrived just after 10 a.m. Witnesses say he moved between classrooms, firing at students as he went. A massive security response was immediately launched, with special forces joining more than 300 police on the scene. Helicopters scanned the area while officers helped rush survivors to safety.
Mein Sohn hat mich heute angerufen.
My son called me today to say that he's in school and being shot at and that he thinks he's going to die. I've now just found out 2 hours later that he's still alive.
Ich will jetzt zu ihm ins Spital fahren. Ich habe versucht.
I want to go and see him. I've tried asking 3 people whether they'll lend me their bicycle to go and see him. They didn't let me. That breaks me.
Police in Graz, Austria's second largest city, say they brought the situation under control within minutes. The dead and injured include both adults and students, girls and boys. Investigators said the attacker he sought to have taken his own life in a bathroom at the school.
The perpetrator was a 21-year-old person from the Graz area. As far as we know, only 2 guns were used and we found them at the scene. They're being inspected and the perpetrators seem to have been allowed to have these weapons. Further investigations need to be done.
It is the kind of attack we're used to seeing in America, but not Austria, the country's deadliest since the Second World War. Austria has one of the highest rates of gun ownership in Europe, but mass shootings are extremely rare. The country's leader spoke for the nation when he expressed his deep shock at what had happened.
Diese Tat trifft uns alle.
This event hits us all as people, as parents, as a society altogether. The school is more than just a place of learning. It is a space of trust, of being at home there, and a space for the future. That this safe space was hit by such a violent act makes us speechless.
Austria will now observe 3 days of mourning. Dominic Waghorn, Sky News.
Well, Sky's Rachel Venables is in Graz. Are we any clearer why this suspect carried out the shootings?
Well, I think that is the question on everyone's mind here in Graz this evening, but still no real updates from the authorities, who've only told us so far that the suspected shooter was a former student at this school, at this high school, that it was into his old classrooms and through the corridors of the school in which he learnt, that he opened fire repeatedly. We know that he's understood to have been a 21-year-old who was living locally, but no more information about any form of motive, whatever it might have been that could lead somebody to such hideous acts. Though it has been reported in the past few hours in the media locally here that some form of farewell letter, no more details about its contents, but that was found at his home address. Authorities obviously having searched that thoroughly today after the hundreds of them rushed here at just after 10 o'clock this morning. I have to say, you can see it's getting dark here, but there's still a huge number of people out on the pavements. It's quite still and quiet despite the numbers, and actually a small shrine, but growing every few minutes, has actually begun to be set up just behind me outside the main entrance to the school. You'll be able to see the glitter there of the candles, people arriving to lay flowers while people watch and pay their respects. Many people in this local area, they tell me they heard the gunshots. They thought at first it was innocent noise, and then after the beats came further and faster and louder, they realised something was dreadfully wrong. And then, of course, they would have seen the authorities' response. And this really is a community in mourning. Austria now reflecting 3 days of national mourning. But we know that for at least 10 families, for them, the mourning only just beginning. They will have been told today that they have lost their loved ones, and you cannot imagine that grief. And many people here feel and are acknowledging that all too strongly here tonight.
Just horrific. Rachel, thank you. The UK has sanctioned 2 far-right Israeli government ministers following comments they made on the war in Gaza. Our political correspondent Liz Bates joins us now. Liz, why has the government taken this action?
Well, it is really significant action. I think they have taken it because of many weeks and many months now of pressure building up because of the situation that we see unfolding in the Middle East. And it is, I think, a mixture of public pressure and pressure from Parliament, from MPs who have been calling on the government now for quite a long time for something like this, concrete action, rather than what we've seen over the past few weeks, which is a real ramping up of rhetoric. The government has recently changed its language in the way that it talks about Israel and has been very confrontational. But this is real concrete action. As you say, sanctions against two ministers, Ben-Gvir and Smotrich. And what the UK government says is that these are personal sanctions against these ministers. They still, in a statement today, said that they still have unwavering support for Israel's security. We continue to condemn the horrific terror attacks of the 7th of October. I should just say as well that we have just in the last hour heard from the Prime Minister, who has said he's spoken to the Prime Minister of Norway this afternoon. They agreed on the importance of this afternoon's announcement between Australia, Canada, New Zealand and Norway, alongside the United Kingdom, confirming sanctions on two Israeli ministers for their repeated incitement of violence against Palestinian civilians. Now, all of this has been set out in the House of Commons today by the Foreign Office Minister Hamish Faulkner. Let's hear what he had to say.
The reality is that these human rights abuses, incitement to violence, extremist rhetoric, comes not just from an uncontrolled fringe, but from individuals who are ministers in this Israeli government. We must hold them to account and protect the viability of the two-state solution. So today we are sanctioning Bezalel Smotrich and Itamar Ben-Gvir. We are acting alongside Australia, Canada, New Zealand and Norway, who have also announced their own measures today. These two men are responsible for inciting settler violence against Palestinian communities in the West Bank, violence which has led to the deaths of Palestinian civilians and the displacement of whole towns and villages. This violence constitutes an abuse of Palestinians' human rights.
We heard there from the Foreign Office Minister. At the heart of all this is the UK government saying that these two Israeli ministers have been inciting settler violence in the West Bank. Unsurprisingly, they have both reacted very strongly to this. They've taken to social media. They've very angrily condemned this action by the UK government. We've also heard, though, from the Israeli Foreign Minister in a statement. Now, what he has said is the political pressure on Israel, which manifests itself in various ways, has one goal: to bring about an end to the war without achieving its goals. While Hamas still controls Gaza and continues to endanger Israel's security, this is planned and timed pressure that includes a series of moves by various countries, decisions on international forums and proceedings in international courts. The actions and decisions against Israel also contribute to hardening Hamas's position in the negotiations for a hostage deal and distance it and the ceasefire. So, coming out very strongly against it there, the Israeli Foreign Minister, in no uncertain terms. He is very unhappy with the UK's actions in this area. Quite interesting. His final sentence in that statement, he said, early next week we will hold a government debate in which we will decide on our response to the decision taken against the ministers. So even though the UK government has been very clear, these are personal sanctions against these two Israeli ministers, what is quite clear on the other side is that the Israeli government consider it to be a collective confrontation, and they are going to consider what their response will be. Could they, for example, sanction UK ministers? That would be a pretty severe and unprecedented escalation. Look, I think there's some key takeaways from what has happened today. First of all, the UK government's position has changed dramatically since October the 7th, in the aftermath of that horrendous attack by Hamas. The Israeli flag was projected onto Downing Street. He wasn't the Prime Minister at the time, but Keir Starmer was asked as the Labour leader what he thought about Israel's actions in Gaza, and he said Israel has the right to defend itself. It was unequivocal support at that point of Israel. So you can see that over the course of a couple of years, the UK government's position has changed. It's almost really night and day. This is the first time the UK government has ever sanctioned Israeli ministers. The other thing is, The UK has acted in alignment with other countries today, but not the US, and we haven't had any reaction from the White House. And clearly, when it comes to getting Israel to change its behaviour, the US is absolutely key. So quite significant, I think, that the UK is acting separately from the US on this, and I think we'll start to understand the political repercussions of that over the coming weeks. And finally, I think it's fair to say that even though many MPs in the House of Commons welcomed this announcement today, there are still many on all sides of the House that think that the government should be taking much stronger steps on sanctions, on trade, on arms sales. So MPs welcoming it, but I think there are still many that think that the government could do a lot more.
OK, thanks, Liz. The Chancellor has announced a £14 billion investment in the new Sizewell C nuclear plant. It comes on the eve of the spending review, when Rachel Reeves will set out the government's priorities and departmental budgets until 2030. The big question is how she'll pay for those priorities. Our political editor, Beth Rigby, reports.
Rewiring Britain. The PM in East Anglia today to give these students some good news.
OK, so far so good. So far so good, yes.
A massive money injection for a new nuclear power plant where they live in Suffolk.
This is about good, well-paid, secure jobs, skilled jobs across a range of topics as we go down this road in relation to Sizewell.
This is a big investment, £14.2 billion to develop Sizewell C, with more than 10,000 jobs to be created over the next decade. All part of a capital spending blitz, the government borrowing tens of billions to invest in power stations, rail and tram networks, scientific research up and down the country. The message: the government will invest to renew Britain. But in all of this, a health warning. When it comes to day-to-day spending on public services, a squeeze is coming as the government prioritises NHS and defence spending, with the Home Office and local government among departments losing out.
It really brings together.
Questions then around whether Labour will meet manifesto promises, be it on housing and policing. Questions too on whether the government will stick with other plans after buckling over winter fuel allowance cuts. Can you just be honest about winter fuel allowance, that you reversed it because of poor local election results? You realised it was really unpopular and you listened to voters. That is the truth, isn't it?
Well, of course we listen to voters all of the time. That's part and parcel of being a politician. The first question is, did we make the right decision in the first place? I believe we did, because we needed to stabilise the economy. I wanted to look to see whether we could have more pensioners eligible for this winter. I announced that some weeks ago.
You realised you got it wrong?
No, we had to. I could have pretended in the budget that there wasn't a £22 billion black hole. I wasn't prepared to do that.
So you're reversing a tax raising measure, and now all the talk is you're going to have to raise taxes.
Everybody understandably challenges me to say you're going to put tax up. We didn't do it in the spring statement, notwithstanding most people saying you're going to. Equally, I don't think the first lever that a government should go to is the tax lever.
This spending review is a massive moment for a Prime Minister who's had a tough first year and now wants to turn the corner, but in practice it's all rather difficult. The economic outlook is uncertain, and this Prime Minister is under acute pressure from his MPs and voters too not to cut spending. That's what the winter fuel allowance reversal shows. And so in the coming months, he's going to be under even more pressure to raise taxes again. This is not a moment to decide tax rises. That all happens in the budget in the autumn. But this spending review is a moment that will define Labour in power and how our country looks and feels for years to come. Beth Rigby, Sky News, Westminster.
Sky's economics and business editor Ed Conway has been crunching the numbers on those spending review trade-offs.
It's the spending review, a big moment for the government and for the rest of us, because we get a sense of where it's planning to spend money, our money, and it's quite a lot of it. Let's look at the big picture, OK? So this is showing you how much money the government brings in terms of taxes. So that's money that we pay in taxes, and how much it spends. So 1.35 trillion versus 1.23 trillion. You've probably noticed a difference here. Look, this bar spending is higher than that bar. The difference between them, That's the borrowing. So we talk about that a lot, don't we, in budgets, about how much extra borrowing there is in order to make those two lines add up. This time around, it's less about that, less about taxes, less about borrowing, it's more about spending. And it's not the whole lot of this. This is quite an important distinction here. So a large chunk of this spending is actually, it's known as annually managed expenditure. It's not really, I mean, it's a bit of a strange name for it, because that's things like benefits, it's pensions, it's debt interest, it's the stuff that is harder to control on a day-to-day or a year-to-year basis. Instead, the focus in the spending review is not about that, it's about this. It's about departmental spending, £554 billion worth of it. And we can also kind of break that down a little bit as well, because some of the spending goes into day-to-day stuff, so paying, for instance, for nurses' wages. Some of it is investment, so spending on hospitals, you know, actually building things. And that breakdown matters, OK, because you have to look at those things differently. They've got different effect. And if we take that current spending, a lot of what we're going to hear about here, it's not just about totals. It's more about how that money is divided up between different departments. So right now, this year, here is how day-to-day spending is divided up. You've got health there. You can see that by far and away the biggest line is health. But you've got education, you've got intelligence and defence. The big question this time around is, how much do those bars go up? We've heard a lot about more money for health, we've heard a lot about more money for defence, but how does it change the overall balance of spending? And then there's the big picture, OK? And this matters as well, OK? Because it's that question about whether the government is increasing the overall amount of spending all that much. This is showing you day-to-day spending going back to 2006-07, investment as well, that's the red line, and it's inflation adjusted. And there's one thing that this government want to highlight a lot, which is that the Conservatives were planning for those lines to be basically flat, actually a little bit falling when it comes to investments. That this government is planning to increase them considerably. So look at just how those dotted lines go up by more. But there's a big proviso to this, OK? If you take that same data and don't just inflation adjust it, but divide it by a share of GDP, which is kind of what you should do when you're comparing it over a long period like that. Same data, divided by GDP, and it's a very different picture, OK? So look at this black line, OK? That, you can see, so you can see the big picture here. That's austerity, how that line went down. Spending was cut over that period, day-to-day spending. There's COVID there. But what you can also make out is, look, even at the peak of where we're heading in the next few years, that is still going to be below the pre-2014 levels. So it's not austerity, it's not coming down, but it's still not getting you back to that pre-austerity level. However, when it comes to investment, look at this line. It's hard to make out here, but actually, that is heading to the highest level for decades. So doubtless, that investment, all those spending plans, building stuff, that is going to be the main thing that Rachel Reeves wants to focus on.
Conway there. Now, the Prime Minister has hailed the courage and resilience of the Southport families during a meeting in Downing Street. Sir Keir Starmer and Angela Rayner met the parents of Elsie Stancoom, Alice da Silva Aguiar and BB King this afternoon. And the Prime Minister has pledged £5 million towards the renovation of Southport's Town Hall gardens in the girls' memory. Their families say the project is rooted in love and unity.
We are happy to say that off the back of the meeting today, the funds that had already been provided for a regeneration project by Sefton Council and Liverpool City Council, that the PM has just announced that the government will match that, enabling us to create and continue our girls' legacy in Southport. So I've come out of there, I still feel quite surprised. I still can't believe that we had a vision and that vision is going to be turned into a reality.
The plans began really in the immediate days after what took place. We saw the outpouring of grief and the focal point being the centre of our town. And that space doesn't really perform much function. So I think the first point was to see if we could actually just create a town square to enable people to interact and for children to be able to go there and feel safe for events to be able to take place. And I think in discussing that with the families, there's an element of memorial, but it's not a memorial. It's a regeneration project for Southport, and it's to reflect the community in Southport that have come together in solidarity, really.
Still to come on the UK tonight, we'll go to Ballymena in County Antrim, where police are blaming racist thuggery for violence last night. We'll also have the latest on the trial of a man accused of murdering a 14-year-old boy with a samurai sword, plus full details of The War Game, a new Sky podcast series that simulates the government's response to a Russian attack on the UK. Stay with us.
Show of military might and menace. Why should the West trust you?
Frankly, I don't care whether the West trusts us or not.
Sky News. Get the full story first. Have a quick word for Sky News. Is the West right? Are you fueling Russia's war machine? American journalist Evan Gershkovich is on trial here, but was first on display. I'm Ivor Bennett, Sky's Moscow correspondent.
Welcome back. Police have described violence in Ballymena in County Antrim last night as racist thuggery. 15 officers were injured and homes were set on fire in disorder which broke out following a protest over an alleged sexual assault.
Last night saw significant sustained disorder in Ballymena. This violence was clearly racially motivated and targeted at our minority ethnic community and the police. It was racist thuggery, pure and simply, and any attempt to justify or explain it as something else is misplaced. I want to condemn these attacks in the strongest possible terms. It has no place in our society and should be loudly condemned by all right-thinking people.
Sky's Conor Gillis is in Ballymena.
This was the scene of the ugly violence just 24 hours ago, condemned tonight by the spokesperson for the Prime Minister, who has said that this is shocking. The police today holding a media conference and saying those attacks were racist thuggery, pure and simple. Let me talk you through the events of the evening. At the start of the night, just at the end of the street here, there was a vigil for a teenage girl who was subjected to an alleged sexual assault. 2 teenage boys have begun the process of going through the court system in connection with that alleged incident. They spoke through a Romanian interpreter as part of that. And today, police have said that many in the far right have seized on that. The anti-immigration mob have seized on that particular incident and the events that happened here on this street were a fallout from that. We had fire bombs, we had petrol bombs being thrown at police. Let's look at the aftermath of the incident. These homes behind these barricades are where many families were living. We had heard tales of families with 3 children up in the attic, fearing for their lives. They could hear their homes being ransacked downstairs. And it has been a day of clean-up operation, and tensions have been fairly high as well. Some locals making their opinions clear in all of this. Now, the big question is, will there be a repeat this evening? Well, police here in Northern Ireland have said there is no specific intelligence to suggest that could be the case. But certainly, as I said there, things are ramping up in terms of the presence here from those officers, who also say they're drafting in resources from elsewhere across this country, and they have the potential to bring in staff from England and Wales as well. All eyes on the next couple of hours, but certainly detectives saying this is racist thuggery at its finest.
Well, in the last few moments, we have heard from the police in Northern Ireland saying the 29-year-old man arrested during the disorder in Ballymena has been charged. He's been charged with riotous behaviour, disorderly behaviour, attempted criminal damage and resisting police, and he'll appear before Ballymena Magistrates Court on Thursday, 3rd of July. Now, police have released footage of a man accused of murdering a 14-year-old boy unboxing a samurai sword just weeks before the attack. Sky's Molly Malone is here. So distressing, this case, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. This is evidence that was played to jurors in the trial of 37-year-old Marcus Monzo. He's accused of murdering a 14-year-old boy, Daniel Angerin, with a sword as he was walking to school on the morning of April the 30th. He's also accused of the attempted murder of 4 others during a series of alleged attacks in Hainault, which is in East London, at the end of April last year. Now, the particular video that we're about to show you was played yesterday to jurors at the Old Bailey, and it was released by police today. And the prosecution say that it shows Marcus Monzo on the 4th of April, so that's a few weeks before these alleged attacks, unwrapping a long curved sword which he'd ordered online, allegedly paid £427 for it. We see him in this video describe the sword as ninja stuff. He calls it sexy. He says it's made of leather, that it was handmade in Japan. It was around 4 minutes long, but we're going to play a clip of it now.
I'm rushing in, but how can I not rush in? Look at this. Have a good peek. Ooh. Freaking sexy. Ah. Sharing. I'm sharing here. Just sharing my sword.
In court yesterday, as that video was played to jurors, and Marcus Monzo had his head buried and in his hands as it was played out to the jury. We also heard in court today from a number of witnesses to these alleged attacks. A recorded statement was played to the jury from a PC, Yasmin Whitfield, who cried as she recounted how she thought she was going to die, in her words, describing being smashed over the head and slashed 4 times with the sword, and also from a man who was at home asleep when Monzo allegedly entered their home. He alleges that Monzo tried to stab him and his wife with that sword. Now, Marcus Monzo denies 8 out of the 10 charges against him, including murder and 4 counts of attempted murder. He previously admitted 2 counts of the possession of an offensive weapon. The trial is set to continue for a number of weeks at the Old Bailey.
OK, Molly, thank you. Still to come on the UK tonight, rugby league legend Billy Boston makes history as he's honoured by King Charles. Welcome back. Rugby league star Billy Boston has been knighted by the King. He received the honour in a ceremony today at Buckingham Palace, becoming the first player in the sport's 130-year history to be given a knighthood. Now, the 90-year-old blazed a trail for black sports stars during the 50s and 60s, making 488 appearances for Wigan and finishing his career with a British record, 571 tries to his name. Quite remarkable. Well, I'm joined now by Wigan Warriors Chief Executive Chris Redlinski. So, arise, Sir Billy. What went through your mind when you first heard this news that he was going to be honoured?
Well, it's been in the pipelines a few weeks, so we've all been working hard behind the scenes to ensure that he gets recognised. I think we've been wanting him to achieve this for many years. So when we knew there was a chance, I think we were all thrilled. He's a cultural icon in rugby league, and certainly in the town of Wigan, somebody that everybody looks forward to. Everybody looks forward to seeing. He's a pretty wonderful and very humble human being.
And we're just looking at some wonderful pictures of the ceremony taking place. Private ceremony with the King at Buckingham Palace. How did it go? Have you heard?
Yeah, I was down there. I spent some time with him last night, and this morning we got him to the palace, and I was outside when he came out, and he was great. I think the family said that the King were really wonderful with them. They were very pleased that he was down to earth, and they looked after him. And as you can see from the pictures there, it sums Billy up very well. He's such a warm soul, and they were smiling all the way through. So it was great to be outside the palace when he came out there, and I shared a little moment with him.
Yeah, so good to see and hear. Rugby league's first night, of course. Just explain why it is so significant.
Yeah, I mean, the stats don't lie, really. That we've never had a knighthood in over 100 years. So there've been many theories and many people wondering why. But I guess that's not for me to say. I just want to look forward and just say that hopefully this is the first of many. There are many people within our game, from on community rugby fields, from volunteers and legendary figures who do wonderful things. And they deserve the recognition that they get, and hopefully this will be the start. I think it's perfect that Billy's the first one, and I've no doubt that there are many other people who can deserve such an honour.
Yeah, the Prime Minister saying it was a historic wrong. He took the brave decision, didn't he, back in the day, to switch from rugby union to rugby league, and he faced a lot of backlash and a lot of prejudice as a result of that.
Absolutely, I think if you look through sporting history, the people who've made such differences are the ones who, blazed that trail, and he had the confidence and the strength of character to do something very different. And he left his little town in Tiger Bay in Wales. He was telling me last night all about it. He was one of 11 children, a 15-pound baby, believe it or not. And
wow.
And his father was a little fella. He's telling me all about it last night, and he moved up north, and he just worked his way into the hearts of the people of this town. And I've known Billy a number of years, and he's very generous with his town, embodied into the community. And I think when things like this happen, you want it to be have unanimous praise, and that's what I've seen today from people around the sport, from different teams, different clubs. Everybody recognises that this is the right thing to happen to a pretty wonderful character.
And there's a statue of him, isn't there, in Wigan?
There's a statue in Wigan, there's a statue at Wembley, and there's a statue in Cardiff. So he must be doing something right.
And just remind us of some of the highlights of his career.
Well, as I mentioned there, he's such a powerfully built guy. I think I don't think there was much subtlety in his game. He was fast and strong, and he tended to run over the top of people. And we all grew up in Wigan hearing stories from our fathers and our grandfathers about this legendary figure. And when you see him, when you talk to him, he's softly spoken with that smile on his face. You may have seen that we spend thousands and thousands of pounds looking at content, yet a few weeks ago he came up on the big screen at the stadium and he literally just smiled, and the whole stadium kind of erupted, and over 1 million people went on to watch that. So it's sometimes it's just the purest things that make the difference. And that picture there of him just smiling sums him up. He's just a really wonderful and genuine guy.
Yeah, and his wife today, Joan, saying Billy's family is so proud of him. He's a wonderful person. He's always loved rugby league and all of the people involved in the sport. That sort of sums him up, doesn't it?
Absolutely, yeah. They were. I saw all the family this morning, and they were all nervous. Like I said, we got them into a car, and we got them to the palace. But after they were shivering wreck, really. But they were going back to the hotel, and they'd ordered some champagne, and very well deserved. Everybody here in Wigan and in the world of rugby league is super proud that this has happened today.
Of course, well done to him, and of course, well done to you as well for helping to make it happen. Great chatting to you, Chris Rydlinski, CEO of the Wigan Warriors Rugby League Club. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Time now to tell you about a new podcast from Sky News and Tortoise Media. The War Game is a 5-part series that simulates the government's response to a Russian attack on the UK. We assembled a cast of former ministers as well as military and security chiefs to take part in the kind of exercise that is genuinely tested inside government. Let's take a look.
The Russians are signalling that there may be, let's call it what it is, Prime Minister, there may be an attack.
I think we just have to be cautious of the word attack.
What would happen if Britain's defences were put to the test?
You want to just take a breath before you decide exactly what the next move is.
I suggested running a war game for a podcast to find out.
We only had one chance to get it right.
This was basically like trying to film a movie in one day.
There was a really palpable air of excitement.
Whatever happens, at least it will bring to life the reality of the threat.
Could be testing whether the NATO alliance is actually as solid as it once was.
Right.
And they may be actually putting that to the test.
Always punching the bruise.
This is where the war game took place. We had to hold it underground to give the sense that we were in a bunker. In reality, we're in a basement in a building in central London.
We came up with this idea that we would simulate, what it's like at the kind of crisis cabinet level, with all the drama that goes with that.
It was a massive project, and I mean, the whole of this basement was transformed into this kind of vast sort of cables, huge amounts of kit.
We mocked up some documents from either the Cabinet Office or from the National Security Council or from the intelligence services.
This room we turned into the Prime Minister's emergency Cobra meeting. And then over here, behind that door, that's where the Kremlin was.
When this red team gets together, and we have done this before, we run rings around the opposition.
One of the challenges is Russia has a long track record of false flag for the purpose of its own agenda.
The war game just seemed to me to be such an innovative way of telling the story of our country, where it's at as far as defence is concerned, and testing it.
A key part of the war game was picking the right players with the relevant experience. Sir Ben Wallace, a former Defence Secretary, was sitting here as our Prime Minister. Jack Straw came back as Foreign Secretary. Amber Rudd, a former Home Secretary, returned to that role. We had Mark Sedwell stepping back into his old job as National Security Advisor, and General Sir Richard Barrons, who's just finished writing the government's defence review. He was our military chief.
The best outcome is that this is just a show of force. The worst outcome is this is setting a force in order to attack the UK.
Prime Minister, the elephant in the room here is what the US is going to do.
In real life, the US Secretary of State would probably be in the US, the NATO Secretary General would be in Brussels, probably. So we brought them in on a big screen in the Cobra meeting.
US Secretary of State, hello.
Hello, I can hear you fine.
On the US side, we asked Professor Phillips O'Brien from St Andrews University to imagine what a US Secretary of State would say.
We are going to follow the US policy as laid out by the President, which will look after American interests first.
It's 4 p.m. on Sunday, the 5th of October. Our top story.
The news reports, they kind of have a couple of purposes. One of them is to be able to play into the players what they would be hearing on the radio on the way to the Cobra meeting. 2 F-35 pilots have been found shot dead. Moscow has recalled its ambassador to London. And for the listener, it's a way of helping people think, you know, if you were living in a country where something like this was unfolding, what would you see, what would you hear?
This whole scenario is the kind of war game that's genuinely tested inside government. The main difference is that nothing discussed in our version is classified.
We're now in a situation where clearly Russia has moved to a position of effectively an act of war against this country.
Do we have any sense whether those are conventional ballistic missiles or whether they potentially have nuclear warheads on them?
You can't tell whether a ballistic missile is conventional or nuclear until it arrives and goes bang, and then you do know.
Russia knows our weaknesses. But do you? I'm Deborah Haynes. From Sky News and Tortoise, this is The War Game. Listen wherever you get your podcasts.
Very dramatic. Looks good, doesn't it? Coming up on the UK tonight, I'm going to be speaking to Team GB's Olympic heptathlon champion from London 2012, Jessica Ennis-Hill. Plus, Joe Bellingham follows in his brother's footsteps on transfer deadline day.
We're rolling.
Welcome to the world.
Our new podcast, starting now. It's very exciting. Every week, we'll be reporting from the world's trouble spots.
We get to hold those in positions of power accountable, and we get to ask the questions that the audience, the listeners, want to know about.
And that's why it is so important that people tune in, come along for the road, come along for the journey. It'll be fun.
I'm Dominic Waghorn, Sky's International Affairs Editor, covering a world that seems to be unravelling. War, unrest, revolutions.
It's not his country, it's ours.
They have succeeded for the first time in their country's history in removing a leader from power.
No freedom!
Sky News, the full story first. There was fighting here, but there's clearly now a lull, and they're using it to bring up more ammunition. This is a mass exodus in which Russia is hemorrhaging some of its brightest and its best. According to the local weather channel, there have been more than 2,500 lightning strikes and flash flooding, all on top of this week's lethal tornado. What stays with you most in this job is some of the people you meet. What is your worst fear about what the Russians want to do to the children?
They're just boosting demographics by stealing young people.
Would you like to take the opportunity, Mr. President, on Sky News to invite Barack Obama to come here? Mr. Trump, are you running for president? Can you confirm it?
We're going to take a look, a very serious look.
On that day, we saw your fighters killing women, killing children. Was that a mistake? Did you go too far? You couldn't control your fighters? The full force of the state is being used to crush any protest. Free wherever you get your news. It's half an hour now past the deadline that Hamas issued, and we've now seen a third barrage of rockets coming in. Another alarm. The mood here is jittery and nervous. We're seeing the world get more and more divided, and it's our job to try to make sense of it all.
Hello again, welcome back. Now, children are often encouraged to take up hobbies as part of their development, like learning a musical instrument or joining a sports team maybe, but could simple playtime be just as important? Someone who subscribes to that theory is Team GB's Olympic heptathlon champion from London 2012, Dame Jessica Ennis-Hill, who joins us now. Great to see you this evening. Thanks very much for your time. And it's interesting, this, isn't it, as a topic? And I wonder if when you were a youngster, because sport obviously was so important in your life and you devoted so much time to it, did you ever feel that you missed out on being a normal kid and having normal playtime, messing around like other children?
I think it's a good question. I think as a young sports person, you obviously dedicate so much time so young to your sport. And I think there are elements and times where you kind of feel like you've not got the freedom to express yourself and play as other kids might. And I think as adults now, you know, we forget how important it is for kids to play, just to have that time where there's 15, 20 minutes in the day where there's no prescribed activity, you're not rushing your kids around. They simply can just get lost in their own imagination and role play in a different way.
Yeah, how old are your kids now? And do you try and encourage them to take time out to play normally?
Yeah, so my kids are 7 and 10, and they both are super sporty. They love doing their sports, but I definitely encourage them to have time just to have that imaginative play, to get lost in a different world that they can kind of make up themselves. And particularly my 7-year-old, you know, she loves getting her Barbie dolls out, and, you know, she'll reenact the whole day that she's had at school or wherever she might be. And it's just a real opportunity for her to express herself.
It doesn't surprise me when you say that they are super sporty. Are they going to follow in your footsteps, do you think?
I'm not sure. They don't do athletics. They've kind of found different sports. My son does a lot of tennis, and my daughter does a bit of cricket, a bit of tennis and swimming. So I think for them to just enjoy sport for what it is, for them to get some pleasure out of it, to have that like fun element again, I think it's really important to just enjoy it at that age. And then, you know, who knows where it'll take you.
Are you able not to be a pushy parent? Is it sometimes a little bit tempting to say, come on, a bit harder, a bit faster?
I think my son's watching in the other room, so I'll say I'm definitely not a pushy parent. But no, I think I've obviously experienced how amazing sport can be, and, you know, the opportunities and what it brings to your life. So I'll always encourage them to, you know, take the opportunities to push themselves if they can, and to have that enjoyment in sport, because I think it can give you so much, whether you get to the highest level or you don't.
And Jess, let's talk about the 2029 World Athletics Championships. You've signed an open letter with other athletes, past and present. Do you think it could come to London?
I hope so, yeah. I think it's got a really good list of, like you say, past and present athletes. And, you know, we've all experienced how incredible it was in 2012 and having the World Championships there in 2017, I think it was. And it was just, you know, a fantastic opportunity for the athletes, firstly, to have home championships, but also for the nation to enjoy, you know, celebrating their athletes, being able to get tickets, to be in the stadium, to soak up the atmosphere. And we've got that fantastic stadium there. So I really hope we can bring it back to London.
Yeah, a bit of that spirit of Super Saturday back in 2012 would be amazing, wouldn't it, as you say, in that stadium?
Yeah, I mean, it was like no other experience. Obviously, it's very unique for myself, but even, you know, 13 years down the line, I still bump into people who have been in the stadium, who were there on Super Saturday, who were there for the rest of the Olympic Games, and just have such core memories of that time. And then they've passed on to their children, and you know, shared all those memories as well. So it was a fantastic time for all of us as athletes, but I think for the country as well.
Yeah, and Jess, I just want to end on a sort of more thorny issue, I suppose, and that's the whole trans issue in sport. I mean, have you got any thoughts on it? Where do you stand on it? It's a difficult issue, isn't it?
I think it's hugely complex. It's very complex. And I think, you know, being out of the sport, I look at it from, you know, kind of a perspective of, you know, a commentator, a pundit on the BBC. And I think that there's so many different elements to it. I think it's very different across different sports. And it's an argument, it's a battle that, you know, we're very much trying to tackle.
OK, well, say hi to the kids for us. They'll be demanding more of your time after doing this interview, won't they? Great to get you on. Thanks very much, Jess. Nice to see you.
Thank you. Nice to see you.
Teddy is here with the sport. Hi, Teddy.
Hello,
so who knew? It's transfer deadline day. Joe Bellingham among the big movers. Tell us more.
Yep, mini transfer deadline day. This is for the Club World Cup, so there's going to be closed for another 6 days, but then it's going to reopen on Monday, so don't panic. This is deadline day, the first to come. But the big move, yeah, it's a surprise one perhaps. Joe Bellingham, for Sunderland fans in particular, will remember him last month in the playoff final, being at the heart of that team that beat Sheffield United, got up to the Premier League, but he will not be there to taste the glamour and the riches of that, because he's chosen to move to Borussia Dortmund, just as his brother did 5 years ago. Jude, you can see the family resemblance. Both grew up in the West Midlands, both Birmingham City Academy. academy. He chose to go to Sunderland rather than the move to Dortmund that Jude made at the age of 17. He's just 19 years of age. He's going to move for £31 million, record sale for Sunderland. And I guess the cliche is he's following in his brother's footsteps, but he was very quick to say on the Borussia Dortmund promotional video he's not following in anyone's footsteps. But it's going to be fascinating to see if he can develop the way that his brother did and become a star for England in the near future.
Yeah, always difficult, isn't it, being in the shadow of someone else in the family. Who else has moved?
Well, we've had a big move for Manchester City. By their standards, really disappointing season. Can only finish third, which was a bit of a disaster for them. But Ryan Cherki from Lyon has come in for £34 million. Player for Lyon, maybe last season, scored 12 goals, played against Manchester United in the Europa League, scored a great goal for France recently. Marcus Bettinelli also gone to Manchester City, a backup keeper after Ryan Aït-Nouri from Wolves, the left back, come left wing back, signed. We're still waiting on a deal for Tajani Reinders from AC Milan. The midfielder going to Manchester City potentially. Chelsea haven't got Jamie Gittins from Borussia Dortmund just yet. Manchester United still no Mbomo over the line or Victor Gyökeres. But things happening, as I say, we've only got 6 days to wait till it all starts again with the transfer window.
Indeed.
And that's the situation there. Let's update you next on England. Jude Bellingham in the England squad for their game against Senegal.
Staying connected is vital for business. Sky Business sponsors this report.
Welcome to number 9 Goodison Road, the Strikers Suite. It's 27 years now since I bought this place. I used to have a box at Goodison. Those days, used to watch the game through the box, which isn't the right thing to do. So I bought this place, converted the top floor to a flat, and then just, as you see, converted this to a corporate suite. I took the 10 lads from the box over with me, so it started as 10, now we've got 26. It's just a gang of mates who get together. We all throw in the kitties to sort of get our food and our drink and stuff like that. All our memorabilia is based around strikers. But one of our more famous guests was Howard Kendall. Howard lived by me in Formby, and every home game we used to pick him up, bring him out here. You've seen his chair in the corner. That's the original chairman's chair from the club's first form, and that we call Howard's Corner. We've got a guest book, and there's all kinds of people came in. I thought they came to see me. Obviously not. This guest book is full of autographs, and the day that Howard died is the day that people stopped coming in.
Sky Business sponsors this report.
Teddy, thank you. Let's finish with a look at the weather.
The ideal atmosphere, whatever the altitude. The weather, sponsored by Qatar Airways.
So, rising temperatures and humidity will bring the risk of thunderstorms from tomorrow evening. But next week does look drier. Many places will be fine this evening. Britain will stay mostly dry and clear overnight, although the far northwest will see rain later, while the south can expect low, misty cloud. Elsewhere, it's going to turn rather murky and locally damp. Much of Britain looks dry tomorrow morning with plenty of sunshine once low cloud in the south lifts, but the far north will see patchy rain. Elsewhere, it'll be rather cloudy, but eastern parts of Northern Ireland can expect some sunshine. It's going to be very warm, locally hot with that rising humidity as well. The afternoon will be largely fine, but Ireland and southwest England will be at risk of showery rain, locally thundery later, and Thursday will bring blustery showers or longer spells of rain.
Breathtaking views with clear skies ahead. Qatar Airways sponsors the weather.
And that's all from the UK tonight. You can catch up on all the highlights on our webpage. Just scan the QR code on screen. Barbara Serra is here next.